So I'm gonna ask you to introduce yourself. Maybe you can start. So, what's your name? What do you do? What do you do?
My name is Harri Hurst. I'm a Finnish national. I live in the United States. I'm a lifelong hacker, security researcher, but I have been doing a lot of other things, from computer graphics to building first pan-European internet service providing internet infrastructure when it didn't exist, to the governmental database systems.
Okay, so a long background in computer engineering, I guess.
Computer engineering with a high school background, yes.
Me too, nice. So,
No computer engineering.
okay.
No, my name is Beatriz Busaniche. I work for Fundación Vía Libre, which is an NGO here in Argentina working in the field of fundamental rights and new technologies. And I'm also a professor in social sciences at the University of Buenos Aires.
Nice.
I am Enrique Chaparro, also from Via Libre, so the introduction has already been done. A mathematician by formation and computer security practitioner for the last maybe 30 years.
Long time to Diego.
My name is Diego Aranha. I'm an assistant professor at the University of Campinas. My research is in cryptographic engineering, but at some point in time I got accidentally involved with the security of the Brazilian system, so I have worked since then to improve its security.
Okay, so well, you are all here because we were talking about voting machines, which is a current topic here in Argentina, and you three have been in the voting panel, which was really good. And well, what are some of your conclusions about? I know that it's maybe not possible today to have a voting machine computer or by software to vote, which can be secure and can have secrecy for voting, but it's possible for the future?
Well, friends don't let friends to vote in the internet. So that's the one kind of electronic voting which really doesn't seem to be possible during our lifetime. There is possibility that in the future a complex cryptographic algorithms like homomorphic encryption might become a reality and solve the problem for us. But the other problem then is that the common man should be able to understand the election system and how it works and also verify the results. And until we live in a Star Trek universe where teenagers are casually conversing about quantum mechanics and quantum physics, that's probably not the case. However, I think that when we are excluding the direct recording voting machines, DREs, there's a lot of places for computers and technology in tabulation of the votes. I'm a true believer in the paper ballots. Paper ballots in complex democracies are complex to count by hand. You have to use responsibly technology, use that technology to process the paper ballots, and then the key of that is always have an audit process. Never trust the results before you have audit.
Bea?
Well, I don't know how to read a crystal ball yet. So it's hard to me to say that in the future we might have a system that we could trust in. But especially coming from the social science field, for me it's even harder than for them, because I am the kind of people that need to understand how the voting system works. So I am the one who is not able to audit a machine, to understand the cryptography of the computer. I am the one who doesn't understand the source code. And so, but I love democracy. I love voting. Voting is a party for me, as Enrique said already said in the talk. So I want to understand the election. I want to be able to audit the election. I want to volunteer to go there, to check, to count votes, to see how it works. Because democracy is a matter of all of us, no matter what is your field of expertise. So if the system puts people like me far away from understanding, it's not a democratic system. If the system is close to most of the people and it takes you to know how to read, how to count, how to fill a sheet, it's more democratic. It's that simple.
Okay. But Enrique, maybe you can understand the code that runs in the machine.
Probably most of us here in this conference can read the code. A number of us can found glitches in the code. Number even more reduced can find carefully hidden glitches in the code, but none of us, even with the accumulated experience of everyone in the table, is able to completely audit an electronic voting system, because you need knowledge from basic electronics to cryptographic algorithms, to fields widely apart. So the question is, could we get a reasonable voting machine in the near future, let's say generation? Perhaps. I don't know. It depends on your definition of reasonable. But on the other hand, the question should be why? Why do we need machines for voting? And where do we need to apply technology? Probably not in the most critical part of the system, which is the interaction between the voter and his or her will. The other parts admit some introduction of technology in terms you still have a trustable expression of voters' will in the form of a piece of paper, or as I told you in the chat, in the form of a glass marble, as in Gambia.
I don't know if we will have sufficiently secure system in the near future. Of course, it's a very challenging problem. You have the interplay not only about different fields in technology or crypto electronics, but also the interplay with cultural backgrounds, and how people understand technology, the level of instruction of a certain country. There are many, many factors. Elections are one of the pillars of democracy. It's like a fundamental thing, and it should be really responsible and conscious decision to decide to move to electronic voting system, because it's really hard to revert this decision. And Brazil, it's a clear example of this. It's almost impossible to convince everyone that we should revert this decision, especially after decades of propaganda. So, but this doesn't matter that we shouldn't try, right? Perhaps there is a legitimate effort in trying to build this thing. One effort that gets me interested is the Start voting system, because it's being co-designed by academics, industry practitioners, and people from the electoral authority, which is rarely the case in many places. So perhaps it's something a place to pay attention and to know, or to build a starting point for a new generation of such systems. But the main theme here is anything we decide to adopt must be verifiable, must be transparent. Otherwise, it's not an election, it's something else.
Right.
I would also like to point out that every country's flavor of democracy is different. So it's very dangerous to say it works in a country X, let's copy it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not only for voting, but
I think that we were told that if it worked flawlessly in Brazil, we can use it too. So
No, but there's another factor. What's the value of a country? I mean, your adversary could be hugely powerful. And as we have seen up to now, analyzing all the systems that we could possibly analyze, you don't need to be so powerful for attacking them. But let's assume, let's assume that the systems have good engineering, good concepts, and the like. There's still the power of your adversary. And your adversary could be a powerful nation state. Let's say that someone in a Shenzhen factory changes a couple of transistors in a processor, for those processors particularly intended for the voting system of your country.
Yeah. And what will you think about there was told here in Argentina that they might buy the machines to voting to South Korea. So we will be bringing foreign technology to our democracy that we don't even know how was manufactured.
It's even worse because you don't know what is their supply chain management. You don't know what are all the infinite third parties and what is the vetting process subject to those. So when you lose control of that, you lose control of everything. And it also, the same applies to the software. If you are in modern election system, election software, let's take any of the big brands, if you are not in control of the whole process from the voter registration, the e-poll book, the ballot definition, the ballot casting, tablet, central tabulator, etc., you are not in control of anything. And all of a sudden the situation very quickly becomes that the election supervisor is just a puppet. And the election supervisor might believe that that person is in control. Reality is no.
But in a case, but yes, it is a big problem if you buy the system from Korea or from whatever. But even in a case of buying the system or contracting the services of an Argentine
Factory.
it's not a factory. For
Software
example,
factory.
MSA,
Yeah.
which is the provider here in Argentina, the main provider,
Yeah.
they don't build the whole system.
Yeah.
They just buy the parts, and I don't know where do they assemble the machines.
The machines are Chinese.
They are from China.
Not only in the hardware, that it's maybe from overseas or whatever, but in the software too, because in the case from here, if correct me if I'm wrong, it runs over Ubuntu.
Yes.
Or any other Linux. It's the same problem, that maybe can I, knowing that Argentina is going to use a kernel Linux to run the software, I could make a change, get it through the chain of the kernel, and then you can have a vulnerability that maybe you didn't even think of.
But you don't need to do that. There are already a lot of known vulnerabilities in the software.
Easier attacks, very easier
Well,
attacks.
talking about if the software of the election is perfect and the Python code doesn't have any problem, there you still have a lot of subsystems that weren't designed in the country.
Well, also I would like to point out that before me and my colleagues started in 2005, there was a holy mantra that if you know the source code and if you've reviewed the source code, that would give you something. And if you have an open source operating system like Ubuntu, that's all is just a theater.
Yeah.
There are so many elements which are firmware, which is embedded software inside of the different components. The moment you hear a word USB, you should be very scared already. So it's really problematic to say what you can trust.
Yeah, since the glorious times of Alan Turing, we know that there are some things that are impossible in the computer world, as to predict if a program is going to terminate or not. So we face those issues. We apply systems to real life things with a certain degree of trust, but we abstain from using them in some other critical matters because we need the theoretical limits. And if you know the theoretical limits, you know that something cannot be achieved in practice. The reverse is not true. If you know that there is no theoretical limit, maybe you can achieve it in practice now or in the future. On the other hand, complexity of systems continues growing. Maybe 4 or 5 generations of microprocessors in the past, we could read what a microprocessor was doing. Now, the current generation of microprocessors, there is no human on Earth able to know, just to assume what the microprocessor is doing, because we have delegated the process of designing microprocessors to other programs.
And
So-
firmware updates, right? You update the processor firmware. So
And microcode.
and microcodes.
And micro blobs, I mean,
It's really hard
Yes,
to know what.
a microprocessor is just hardened software.
Yeah. So maybe one of the last questions. You two are in an organization about civil rights, but what do you think about, is there a responsibility for us as IT people to talk about these issues, to maybe first to other IT people and then to the common people outside in our countries?
I think there is a great responsibility for security community to make certain that the facts are known and educate people to ask the right questions, provide what the answer might be, but also trust and verify. Don't even trust us. Make certain that you have the right answers. Most important is to educate what are all the things you should consider, what are all the questions you should be asking, and also what is your threat model. I think one of the biggest revelation for a lot of people who have been in election security world has been that the threat model is completely wrong. The threat model is there is a candidate who wants to win. No, that's not the threat model of today. We have nation-state actors. The threat model is not even that the nation-state actor necessarily wants a certain candidate to win. They just might want to cause a havoc.
Yeah.
Just undermine the trust of the whole process. Let's destroy this democracy thing, for the hell of it. So we have to really go back and think about what is our threat model? What we are defending against?
Yes. Yeah, I understand we have a full responsibility, not only in terms of voting. We are increasingly delegating critical tasks to computer systems, and we need to educate people about how much healthy distrust they should have in these systems. It's not healthy to blindly trust that they will work. And this is really strange, that people have daily evidence that computer systems fail and fail in horrible ways, but they still suspend this disbelief to trust other systems. So we need to tell them that this is actually the same thing. It's a computer running software programmed by a human who probably didn't sleep enough last night and is writing mission critical software on the next day to tally a 100 million vote election. So it's a burden we have to carry, but I think it's it's the only way forward. It shouldn't be like a war between some specific security researchers and like whole government institutions. The community must adopt these principles and push them forward, because that's the only way to force change.
And the last one for all of you. What else can we do to try to educate the people? Because the people often see you as, oh, you're against machines because, I don't know, because you are anti-technology and because you are you like the other candidate. And here it was a common issue. And do you know what we are doing wrong, or what can we improve to approach to the common people?
First of all, common people need to be educated, and more people there are who can educate, more information you get out, not only directly to the public media, but also help the journalists and the media to tell the story in the right light instead of being lobbied. And that's why efforts like Ekoparty and like what we did in DEF CON, where we give people access to the machine and you can learn yourself. Don't trust us, go and find yourself. And one of the things which made my heart most warm in DEF CON was how many election supervisors came there to hack the really massive machine, which they run to use their own elections. They are forced to maintain and operate machines which they haven't been previously authorized and allowed to inspect and study and find out what is the truth about their security.
And my message to all the technical community, especially to the technical community, is talk to people. Take your time to talk to people, whoever, journalists, politicians, a teacher, someone who can disseminate. Talk to the people, because when you clearly speak on these issues, people who is honest in their beliefs, they change their opinion. I know a lot of people that because of this technological delusion we live in, there's a lot of people that trust in technology, that feels that there is a path, that it's the way it is going to be, like if there's no other chance. So this is it, and progress, and it's modernization, and so on. But people who is honest, when you talk to them and you give them the reasons, they change their opinion. And the problem is that most of the people involved in taking these kind of decisions, they don't want to understand. And this is the main problem. When you talk to people that is not willing to understand. I don't know why. I will not.
It's kind of a deadlock, because we should change our representatives by voting, but the problem is voting.
Yeah, it happened to us that we went to the parliament last year, and we presented a lot of evidence, a lot of people with a lot of academic credentials, and it was a tremendous amount of evidence. And they said, oh, no, this cannot be. They are behaving like who do you think you are? This is not going to fail. You come and do your magic tricks, and they also said that we are like a technological religion or something like that. They trying to deny.
Like a cult.
Yes, but people who is honest, and when they hear the reasons, they understand, because what is at stake is so serious that no one wants to mess with this. The problem is that politicians, a lot of them, and I will not say all of them, but a lot of them, bought the arguments from the business sector, who are willing to sell a lot of machines here. And we don't know why. We don't know why. We could think whatever we want. But they bought this promise, and they are just telling, oh, this is not going to fail. We are technophobics, so you paranoids, and things like that. But in Via Libre, when we made a decision to take this topic as part of our agenda long time ago, we were about a few people talking against electronic voting in a moment where Germany was still, and the Netherlands, and when it was a trend in Europe and in the North. And most of the people told us, don't fight this battle, you will lose. This is something you have to just do damage control. But we didn't accept that, so we kept talking to people. Don't care about the time you will spend. Talk to journalists, talk to your students, talk to everyone who is willing to hear you, and that is how we change. I think we almost changed the perspective on this topic.
The computer security community has been acting, doing black magic since I remember, and I have a long time memory since the times of PDP-11. So one of our problems as a community is our capacity to communicate. I mean, we get suddenly bored when someone does not understand the stuck troubles of some magically religious program we are dealing with. So we have serious issues in terms of communication.
Yeah.
I don't mean only in terms of electronic voting. When we are speaking in general terms of computer security, we have serious issues of communication. And then we happen to be kind of modern Cassandras announcing disgraces. So our duty as a community is to build a discourse that can be understood by the common people. A discourse that is rational, is logical, is well-grounded in theory and in practice, but it's also accessible for everyone. Because if I start speaking to my auntie about homomorphic encryption, there is a 99.995% probability that she won't understand anything.
And be brutally honest about the problems we have. Be technically accurate, so you don't fall into the trap you are actually fighting against, and inform the public as much as possible. It's the only way forward that I can see.
Well, we're going to try. Anything to add?
Thank you.
No, thanks to you for being here.
Thanks for the invitation. It's really a pleasure.
Really welcome.
And good luck.
Good luck to you.
To all of us.